Hi, I'm Cassandra Parton, Managing Director with NextTech Learning. Welcome to NextTech's weekly live broadcast, where we share relevant updates to help you implement successful employee development methods. In today's broadcast, I'm joined by John Cooksey in a conversation around establishing a learning culture within your business and creating employee development plans. John has over 20 years experience in HR and business leadership, and as a certified instructor and advisor with the Advisory Board Centre, John partners with leaders to create human resource plans that cover all aspects of human resources, from workplace foundations through to talent management and ultimately organisational capability. So we're really excited to have you on board, John. Perhaps you can start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Cass. Yeah, and thanks for having me along. It's great to be part of the broadcast. As you mentioned, I've spent all of my working career in and around the people space, from large corporate organisations as an HR director at one stage with KFC and Pizza Hut, both here and in Asia. Worked with other larger businesses and also helped to build smaller agencies, such as a market research company, to win ARI awards for innovative org structures and in fact, learning plans like we're talking about today.
Love it. That's amazing. So, John, from your experience, what would you say is so important in establishing a learning culture in a business? And perhaps if you can give us some key tips on establishing a learning culture within any organisation.
Yeah, I think it's really important for a bunch of reasons. Primarily when people join organisations, they actually go on a path through the company. They join the organisation and they're onboarded into a role. They go into their role and then they need to be able to perform in that role. And whilst we like to think people join with all the skills we need, providing learning in that role is really important. Employees are part of a team as well, and also, part of divisions and companies that work with clients. So, I think it's important that companies have structured learning pathways and plans to ensure that people can do well in their role. And there's the natural benefits of that, enhanced performance for individuals, which I guess is something you always want to do as a person. Most employees are there to do the right thing and do well. These other benefits, because it contributes to the overall team dynamic and contribution as well. And a lot of rewards in companies are based on me doing well and my team doing well and my division doing well. So being able to do your role is very important. And then I think the learning part just adds to the ability to enhance the motivation of people in their roles as well. It's nothing worse than rocking up to a company that told you it was going to be fantastic and all they do is chain you to the grindstone and off you go.
Exactly.
And I think more importantly, the idea of a learning culture is one thing, but actually doing the right things to achieve it is another altogether. So, for example, the plan and the planning for learning needs to be both targeted and pragmatic. So it needs to be focused on specific roles. Companies need to recognise you don't have to develop everybody the same way. So not everybody has to get the same learning, which I think is culturally actually a significant problem for a company to spend learning money in the wrong way. Not everybody can be a leader or even wants to be a leader, to be honest. Right now, we're all just happy to get back to work and hang out with people we used to talk to every day. We don't want to have to be the leader as well when we turn up. And I think that's really important. That way they can make sure they spend the money in the right spots for the right people for the right reasons and ensure they get a great return on investment for that learning money too, because it doesn't come easily. Getting money for learning in a company is not as easy as getting money to promote the company's new favourite product. So.
No, that's right. And you touched on some really key points here, John, specifically around kind of overall performance. So investing in kind of upskilling people or learning overall to enhance performance. But I think it also goes into other aspects around morale and the overall culture within an organisation. If you're working for an employer who is investing in you to whether it be promoting into a managerial role, maybe it's got nothing to do with management, as you mentioned. Maybe it's just about investing and showing that you are valued in that sense, and that we are, as an organisation, we're investing in your growth. Take performance aside, that's obviously a big tick there as well. But I think just from a valued employee, valued satisfaction perspective, I think it's really important to embed that and really think about that when you're looking at your creating a learning culture from an importance for an organisation perspective. So that's really interesting. So, John, we all know this time of year performance reviews are coming up. So, especially within an organisation that has already got that strong learning culture, can you give our viewers some insights on how they can take ownership with their own professional development?
Yeah, there's a number of ways, and it's interesting to pick up on what you just talked about in terms of the importance of learning. There's this old saying that employees leave managers. You know what? With the right learning and the right approach to your own learning and working with your teammates, there's no reason why you can't survive a bad manager for a while. Because you'll be recognised by others in the organisation as well. So, notwithstanding the specific targets for roles, when employees have shown they're going the next step to look after their own development, that is recognised by companies. And that's in a couple of ways. Fundamentally, it's within the organisation. So there's nothing better to have an employee who is doing their role, but then asking for the access to the internal development opportunities. So, I'm doing this here, but I would like to learn this by accessing external learning, by accessing the programs the company's already got. And from an external perspective, there's a number of ways that people can do learning in terms of benefiting their own career. Historically, showing my age, but you needed to do an MBA for anybody to think you were serious, and thankfully we don't have to now. There's lots of other learning opportunities to add to skills on an as needs basis rather than a big program. So, a lot of them are online. Lots of opportunities to do that, and thankfully the online opportunity provides the ability to do learning that's targeted to what you need at a time that's convenient for you. So you don't need to be going to night school 3 nights a week. You don't need to be taking up all of your weekend. And then the other ways that people can access that is through industry associations who provide learning programs as well, and potentially the ability to be part of a project group at some stage, again either in the community or within the work organisation as well. There's a lot of learning to be had these days around companies asking folks to pitch in, use their technology skills to assist on new product development, new customer initiatives, and so on.
I think you with individuals kind of looking at their own professional development. I think it's having that, if you're looking at it personally, looking at how you can actually go and have a conversation with your manager during this time and say, hey, look, I'm really interested in this field. I know today, actually, I'm upskilling one of my staff, one of my trainers. She's sitting in an ITIL course today and tomorrow. She came to me and said, Cass, I'm really interested in this field. I want to know more. And I'm like, 100%, we're running this course, let's get you on board. I think having that confidence level as an individual to go to management or to go to HR and say, look, I'm interested in something like this, not just waiting for it around performance review time as well is really crucial. So no, that's really good. John, from your experience working and leading businesses, how did you see successful companies support, plan and manage employee development?
Yeah, it's a little bit part of what we've touched on. I mean, fundamentally, it comes down to the organisations deciding what they need everybody to be able to do in their roles, because a company has a purpose. And it's really important that learning is part of the organisation recognising for an individual what that individual's purpose needs to be in the context of the role. And so a lot of organizations do that well at the senior level, but it's really important, I think, for organizations where they can to work all the way down through the organization and identify learning opportunities for each individual in their role, but to make sure that it's targeted and focused. Then do that in terms of the team context and then the broader organization context. Provide project opportunities, again, as learning opportunities. So not all learning is a 5-day course. It's probably better off being a shorter learning opportunity or one that's spread out over time, so they can embed the skills in the individual and then into the team and then into the job. Because we've all been on programs where we've sat there and on day 3, we're not sure whether we learnt anything yet. And we certainly haven't had a chance to practice it. So we get back to work and we've learnt too much. We can't do it. So I think it's important to be pragmatic that way. I think it's important to build it into the succession planning concept. Again, not everybody is suited to move through the organisation, but as part of the planning for spending money appropriately on learning, it needs to be linked to when we do teach people or give them a learning experience, what will they do with that? And also be brave enough, and a lot of companies haven't been, to spend the money on people while they're in your role and not be scared they're going to run off and be great somewhere else. Because we've found over time that
that's so powerful, yeah.
That they don't. They're already great, probably. So if your competitor's going to steal them, they're already lining them up. Making them better at their job may even make them stay with you.
Exactly.
And I think that's really powerful. The second thing is, I think it's really important that companies try and be more innovative than they have been historically. So again, varying the types of training. Back in the day, I ran learning for Pepsi's restaurants on a global basis with 4 other people, and it was pretty fancy. We had pieces of paper and video. That was it. No computers. We sat on flour and chicken boxes in the storeroom, and it was a little screen, and you had to move the mop in order to, wipe the dust off the screen in order for people to be able to
grease from the chicken off the screen.
Yeah, fantastic. I drive around in my car and act all important and report on training, and I got sick of it, so I made little videos of where they made us put these computers. People couldn't get to them, couldn't do anything. Now, we've got augmented reality, virtual reality. We've got the ability to break training down into bite-sized chunks. You can do it at home. You can do it on your phone in the train. You can do a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Really important. And it talks to the commitment of organisations when it comes to learning. So I think it's important to have a solid commitment to what it is the plan will be, so that people know what the time constraints will be. I think the flip side of that is sometimes, and I've seen it with companies providing access to an intranet of learning.
Yeah.
So banks have done this at times. I think it's sometimes providing too much opportunity, because if you provide too much learning, people feel obliged to do it. Gosh, they've given us all this learning, I've got to do it. And if I don't do it, then they'll think Sally's keener than me. And I've got 4 kids and I travel an hour to work every day. And so, it's got to fit in the middle there. It's got to be the right thing for the job, right thing for the person and the circumstance. And that also stops you spending more money than you need to. Right?
Yeah.
And then when it gets to budget, this is a classic time of year in the business world where the training plans might not have gone as well as to time. I mean, many things at the moment are going to time because the circumstances have changed. So what can happen at this time of year is a real challenge where the learning budgets haven't been spent. And the company then might decide, well, we'll hold on to those because that's the easy money to keep for something else. And that undermines a couple of things. Fundamentally, undermines the commitment that you made to the employees in the first place, because presumably you told them they were going to be developed, and now they're not. And it's really important to stick to the commitment you've made around what the plans are, and presumably a lot of that's funded. The other challenge for that from a budgeting cycle perspective, particularly with HR funding, is often the budget is next year's based on an increase on this year if you haven't done a sophisticated budget. So it's a vicious cycle. If from a learning perspective, if you didn't spend the learning dollars, then next year you get less learning dollars.
They'll cut next year. Yeah.
So it's important, I think, to explore innovative ways to access learning opportunities into the future that demonstrates commitment to the employees, also gets you a chance to spend your learning dollars. And in fact, it's probably, if you could do that now and say to folks, I've already organised some learning opportunities, not exactly sure what they are specifically, but I've got it covered for January 2021. That's a massive boost than going into somebody's office on a Friday and saying, I'm sending you something on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a really, really positive engagement of employee for the future.
And that's huge. I think if you've invested or you've kind of set the expectation with an employee that we are going to be putting you through this particular course, or, upskilling you in this certain area, and then kind of going back on that and going, well, look, we'll touch on it, we'll get to it later. That can also kind of make them feel, or potentially feel, a certain way from a morale perspective. So that's for sure. 100% there. And I think from a timing perspective, end of financial year historically is a huge time for us for training and working in the industry for a number of years. it's kind of a situation, like you mentioned, a use it or lose it type scenario. And next year's budget is predominantly assessed by what you have spent and what you got out of this year's budget, right? So, which I'll touch on a little bit later, and we'll share through some details. But NextTech have got an end of financial year vouchers offer that you can look at maximising your end of financial year budget, so you can invest that and get a whole nother 12 months. Because let's be honest, the situation we're in right now, who knew that this was happening, right? And and in 12 months from now, we're not going to be in such a tight restriction that we're in now. We're obviously, going to be transitioning out of that, whatever that will be. But business will need to return to operating differently to how they are during this period. Yeah. So, by looking and investing in your budget that you've got now, utilizing it long term is a really great strategy. And no, that's fantastic, which we'll touch a little bit more on that further down in our conversation. But I guess just to kind of go on with this a little bit more, John, what would you say employee development plans and learning culture contribute to engaging and retaining talent?
Yeah, I think it's one of the simplest ways to enhance engagement and retention for an organisation as well. I think it's just in a couple of, 3 key areas really. We all want to do well, full stop.
Yeah.
Be a parent, ride a bike a bit quicker, get a bit fitter, become more comfortable with technology if we're not that way inclined. And learning does that. The right learning ensures that we're more capable post-learning than we were pre-learning. And in an organisation, that's fantastic. My performance on the job is a pride thing. I want to do well. I want to go home, and when my significant other says, "How is it?" I can say, "I'm going all right. This is okay. Oh, that's good." And they go, "Oh, that's good." And then it affects how I work with my team. We don't want to work with people who don't think we pull our weight and contribute, without being over the top. So it helps with team engagement and team performance as well, which again enhances motivation. And then also from a financial perspective, you mentioned performance management and all those sorts of things. Rightly or wrongly, how we go in the job determines how much money we make.
That's right.
And, cost of living has gone up forever. Mortgages are getting more expensive. Our wages haven't collectively, right? So the ability to make it a lot more money is harder for the majority of the workforce. And the other thing too, if you believe the paradigm that employee performance contributes to happier customers, that contributes to happier profit for a company, then it's one of the best ways to get a return on investment for the organisation, full stop. Not forget HR jargon and HR planning. It literally has an impact on the customer. And, we've all had days when we thought life would be great if we didn't have customers who aren't happy. And so the flip side is it has a direct impact on the ability to affect the customer and generate revenue for the company. Then you can just take a little bit of and invest back in the people, and it just keep the cycle it grows.
I think also from a technical perspective, a lot of organisations rely on upskilling their people so that they can complete projects. And that's obviously going to be looking at whether it's the organisation functioning more effectively, or maybe that's going to be producing revenue in terms of bringing in income by going and working on projects outside of the organisation as well. So, a lot of organisations do have to rely on upskilling their people, and it can be a really cost-effective way, rather than having to go out and outsource and train somebody new to come up with those skills. By investing in your people, it is a great cost-effective way, rather than having to outsource, and then obviously salaries go up and what have you, and the recruitment fees that are along with that as well. So that's really interesting.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that's a great point. There's nothing better than having the people that are already working for you doing better. You don't have to introduce new people to the organisation. It's a great point.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing these great insights, John. That was really, really interesting and valuable, especially this time of year with end of financial year budgets just around the corner. We'll be closing off. So as we discussed earlier, NextTech is here to partner with Australian businesses and government organisations to support a learning culture and an organisation that wants to establish a solid employee development plan. So we actually have the most cost-effective prepaid training voucher credits-based system here in Australia for our end of financial year campaign. So what we're going to do is we will send through some information below, just linked to our website, talking about our discount structure. We actually have up to 30% off training. You'll be receiving basically a point-based system that you can redeem for free days of training as well. So it's really great. We'll send through some information on that shortly, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. Get in touch with my team, and we're here to help you finalise the rest of your budget and plan for the new year. So thank you so much for joining us today, everyone joining in. John, thank you so much for being a part of our broadcast.
You're welcome.
We'll be sharing some more information on social shortly on our next week's broadcast, so stay tuned.